So I started a new project this week, and this is what I'm using as my material, sometimes known as yarn barf. And I know you're thinking, why don't I just throw it away? And I've thought that too, but the last time I had a pile of yarn barf, it turned into this. Now, now it's almost impossible for me to throw any of these bits out because they can be gems that turn into something so beautiful. Anyway, so I started weaving this week and I'll tell you about my new project while you watch me weave. My younger daughter is away at university right now, so I've turned her bedroom into my weaving studio, at least until the end of the month when she gets back. Well, I signed up for a 30-day creativity challenge called Find Your Flow. It's a follow-on from the sketchbook revival series that I had finished last month. The only requirement is that you choose a creative project and work on it every day for 30 days in May. And that seems simple enough. And I know, I've said that my plan this year was to stick to the knitting, but this one actually fits in with that plan. I've been every morning since January, I've been spending some time on a fibery, fabricy project. In January and February, it was actually literal knitting, and then March and April, I switched over to some hand stitching. I've been working on that every morning while I listen to Spanish language videos with my plan to improve my understanding of the language. And I was ready for another change up in what I was doing in the mornings, and weaving seemed like a good fit. And I've got these two looms that have been warped up for well over a year now. I was going to use them for a school project that I worked on last year called Weaving Community Connections, and that kind of went a little sideways when the schools closed down last March after spring break. And I was able to finish that project, but with a completely new group of students in the fall, and the weaving looks a little different than what I had initially planned, and we ended up with this really cool looking circular weaving that I think is a fabulous reflection of the theme of weaving community connections. So as a result, I have these two looms that have warps on them, and I've been thinking about what I should do with them. So I think this works in really well. I'm using up something that I have in the house. I'm making use of this big pile of yarn that I have. I remember the first time I saw somebody weaving on something more than a frame loom, and I could not understand what they were doing. And perhaps watching me, you're wondering what the heck is going on. Well, when you weave, the most simple form of weaving, you'll have some threads that are held under tension on a frame, and those are the brightly colored vertical threads that you see here, and they're called the warp threads. And then the threads that you weave through those threads, the pieces that are on my shuttle, are called the weft threads. The way that weaving works is that you'll take your weft threads and thread them over and under and over and under the warp threads until you get to the end of one row, and then you'll go back in the opposite position. Now the piece that you see me moving up and down and packing the threads into place, what that does is it lifts up every other thread. So as I pass my shuttle with the weft on it through the gap between the upper and lower threads, that takes the place of going over and under each thread individually. And then when I push that heddle down, the opposite threads are lifted up, so it gives me the opposite sequence that locks everything into place. And this, you'll notice that the type of weaving that I'm doing is a bit different than some of the weaving that you might be more used to. I'm not a very precise and organized weaver. My style of weaving is influenced by a Japanese way of weaving that's called saori, and this emphasizes sort of creating something that's one of a kind, that's a personal expression that could never have been made by a machine and that can never be replicated. So I'm really weaving intuitively without making any plans, and whatever comes out, I'm just letting it be.